All right, everybody. We are finally back after a long period of time where we have just tried to get through the grueling off season. We don't even want to talk about the Orange Bowl. We're just gonna slide right past that. But Florida State, as many of their social media team has indicated, they went undefeated last year. We'll just stick with that. We won't claim a national championship like UCF did, but I'm here with my guy Nolehighlights. Man, how have you been doing? It's been a while. It's been a long time.
Man, I've been doing good, man, with a 13-0 season, bro. I'm doing real
That's right.
good.
Man, I feel you there, man. Before we get started, man, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe over to his channel as well. He's going to be doing some fire content pretty soon as well. But let's go ahead and get straight into it. So we're going to have a little bit of discussion because let's face it, it's been a while. It's been a while since we've talked. It's been a while since we've done a lot of things. And man, let's go ahead and start off with recruiting, the future foundation of the program. Florida State right now is sitting, I think, 19th in the country in 247 Sports composite rankings. They've only got 4 prospects committed. Javion Hilson was the latest commit in January, where he was committed to Alabama. After Nick Saban retired, he went ahead and flipped his services over to Florida State. Mike Norvell's been, kicking Alabama's tail in certain aspects, especially after the head coaching offer decided to stick with Florida State. What is kind of your reaction with Mike Norvell and kind of how he's setting the message so far and getting some of those Bama transfers as well as getting Hilson in the class so far?
Man, I think the message is pretty much self-explanatory. Like you see, Norvell told these guys, like, man, he gonna turn the program around. I think he haven't did nothing but that. I think he turned the program around, and these guys see it. And you see the recruiting classes, they keep improving each year. Each year we get better, they keep improving. I think he's fresh off his best class since he been here. So man, 2025, I think is just the sky's the limit, man, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got a lot of crystal balls so far, and fans have been super excited to see when we're going to actually get this next commit. And we've seen a couple of guys trending in the right direction, and we've even seen a couple of guys trend in the wrong direction. I mean, you look at Daryl Johnson, for example, Duke Johnson for short. He's a safety that Florida State was going after. Florida State was kind of in the driver's seat to get him, and now all of a sudden he's got Alabama crystal balls going into his decision on the 20th. How do you think that recruitment's going to play out? And do you think Florida State kind of has a chance there? I mean, I know he's got a visit coming up in June too. Maybe he'll still stick with that visit and stay through, or do you think it'll kind of be just Bama and maybe Florida State might sneak in a little bit later?
Honestly, I think I think that'll probably be one to watch all the way close to signing day. You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard
Yeah.
for me to count out Patrick Surtain, but then again, it's hard for me to count out Alabama as well. So I think that's just one of those ones where we just have to watch Surtain work. Even if we don't land the kid, I think
Yeah.
we gonna always, you know what I'm saying? With Surtain, I think we're gonna always
Yeah.
have that DB in the background. It's just like, okay, yeah, Surtain the real deal.
Now, I mean, that's the other thing too. I don't want to always focus on the bad news because we actually got some good news today with Dontrell Glover, the interior offensive lineman, 4-star. He was also a former Alabama commit, decommitted from Alabama. Now he's saying Florida State is his leader in his recruitment. We know how Alex Atkins is on the recruiting trail. We also understand too, man. Alex Atkins has not really done a whole lot in terms of getting his recruits to actually translate over to the field. We've seen guys like Julian Armella, Jalen Early. We've seen Lucas Simmons. We've seen all these talented guys. He even had like 6 offensive linemen in that 22 class, and none of those guys have transferred into the rotation yet. And, you've seen a couple of those guys transfer out of the program. And you're wanting to see kind of the production of these recruits to kind of stand put, and you got a guy like Glover, 330 pounds. He's a guy out of Georgia. They love recruiting a lot of Georgia and Florida kids. I think he could have a solid class, but they've got Solomon Thomas committed to the class. I think he's going to be more of an interior. He can be a little bit more of a tackle if he wants to, if he slims up a little bit. But what are kind of your thoughts on Alex Atkins, maybe Glover, or kind of how the whole process is going so far with just offensive recruiting or offensive line recruiting in your standpoint so far?
Man, I think everybody had this in the back of their mind. Like, some of these, well, most of the guys that play during the season are pretty much from the transfer portal. I know one guy that I think we all want to see is Julian Armila. We want to see how he pan
Yeah,
out because that's a guy that Alex Atkins did recruit straight out of high school. I think I think he could once he get a man, he could definitely coach them up and develop them. I just think we just got to get over that hump, man. I think it's just
yeah,
that first, once I think he get like more recruits in, I think then you'll be able to see like our guys from straight out of high school, they playing on the
mhm.
field, that type of deal. But I'm willing to wait and just have patience with Alex. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm willing to see what he do.
I want to transfer this over just a little bit because I know I still want to stick on topic of the offensive line, but we talked about it a little bit. We have guys like Julian Armella as well as Jalen Early. We have Lucas Simmons. Do you think that there's a possibility with fall camp coming right around the corner, starting on the 19th, they're going to kind of get into the swing of things? But do you think that maybe one of those three guys can maybe crack the 8-9 man rotation in this season, or do you think it's kind of a far stretch? I mean, I know it's hard to ask for because we haven't really seen other than Robert Scott, who is another offensive lineman that's really that he's recruited. Now I know Darius Washington was a homegrown talent,
Maurice
Maurice
Smith.
Smith and guys like that, but like there's not really been a guy that's been out there that's done a whole lot. I mean, Schrader had his moments, but he's already out of the program. I mean, like, do you think that one of those three guys can step in? Because we know how big Lucas Simmons is. I mean, that man is a monster. He's 6'8", 315 pounds. I mean, and I know he didn't play much last season, but I mean, the talent's there. But will it transfer to actually being on the field and being a consistent playmaker?
Like you say, man, the talent is there. I heard good things about Jalen Early. I think
Yeah.
Fabian Lovett had put out what he was doing in the interview, and
Hmm.
he was saying like Jalen Early is like the only offensive lineman that could really stand up Jared Verse.
Yeah.
But I think the talent is there, man. I just think with Lucas Simmons, I think the weight gain, I think that was one of the things that he probably had to work on. But as far as this year, like I looked at the clip of them practicing and whatnot.
Hmm.
Man, Julian Armila looked good. He
Yeah.
looks. I
Oh
think
yeah.
he done get. I think he done put on some weight. It looked like he put on
Yeah.
some weight, man. So I don't know what they're gonna do with him. I think they could probably gonna try him out like probably inside and outside.
Yeah.
But hopefully they can get something going, man. Like with our guys, high school guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm super excited to kind of see how that board kind of expands because I know Solomon Thomas is a 5-star prospect. I'm not necessarily sure if he's going to stick as a 5-star prospect just because he's not a flashy playmaker, and that's kind of what these recruiting rankings have done. I think he's a really, really nice prospect, but maybe it might be around the high 4-star type of range, may sneak into a low 5-star, but I definitely think that he is a talented piece that Florida State can't miss on. But another piece I think Florida State really can't miss on, especially on the offensive line, is Zaire Addison. I think that that's a guy that Florida State recruited very, very early on. He talked about in an interview that he had recently with one of the recruiting analysts, and Florida State was his first offer when he was 240 pounds. I mean, over there at Riverview, I think he's a very, very good guy that Florida State likes, especially at the tackle position. I've even interviewed him at times and he would tell me, I mean, he's a true left tackle. Like he wants to be that blindside protector, wants to be that guy to come in and step in right away. And I mean, I know he's visiting other places like UCLA. I think he's on a visit right now, Stanford, and then he's also got Clemson and some other places as well that he's going to. Very talented guy, top 150 player. But do you think Florida State is going to be able to kind of expand the board and continue to keep him on and hopefully be able to kind of get him in? Because I know he's got a visit in late June on an official visit there. But do you think that there's a possibility that Florida State can continue that momentum going in there with him?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility, man. Alex Atkins is like one of those guys like Patrick Surtain. Like,
Yep.
it's hard to count him out. Even when things go bad, he always have a rim in the bush. So
Yep.
and I'm noticing something, man. These guys that he's recruiting, man, they have quick feet. I'm talking about they have quick feet that are athletic. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
a certain caliber guy that he's recruiting. So I definitely think it's one of those deals where you can't even count out Alex Atkins.
Yeah, man. I'm super excited to kind of see how this 25 recruiting class goes because I think the trenches, especially on the offense and defense side of the ball, are going to be super important. Like I definitely think they need to hit on a couple of those guys that are going to have to be high impact players. I mean, you're not going to have your Braden Fisk and your Fabian Lovett and guys like that right away. But I mean, if you're able to get some of those guys in the fold and just kind of keep them there and kind of grow and develop them as we go through, I think it's a big factor. I mean, in terms of defensive line recruiting, I know that Florida State's had a couple of whiffs on the recruiting trail. Transfer portal they've hit pretty decent. I mean, they've done a really really nice job, especially at the edge position. But I think there's one guy that I think Florida State desperately needs to get after in this recruiting class, and that's Jalen Wiggins from Tallahassee. I mean, you have to keep those in-state and in-city kids at home. Like, and I mean, what's even worse is he's committed to your arch rival Florida Gators. And so there comes a point where, Florida State's got him on an official visit on the 21st. It's going to be a huge visit. You're going to have Tramel Jones there as well, four-star quarterback commit there from Mandarin. And that's going to be a guy that Florida State's going to have to be able to try to get. Odell has got to find a way to be able to get him there. I mean, this is a guy that Florida State cannot miss on. What are kind of your thought processes on just Jalen Wiggins and in terms of also keeping Tallahassee kids or just around the area at home at Florida State?
Bro, you said it. We gotta find a way to keep, especially those man that size where he's like 6'5",
Yeah,
like 250.
yeah,
Man, I'll go to Ricketts and talk to put a word in myself if need be. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like we have to find a way to keep those guys, especially with that body type inside the Tallahassee. Like you can move. I think you could probably move him if he don't work out at defensive end. You could probably move him to interior. You know what I'm saying? We just got to find a way, man. We got to find a way to keep those guys.
yeah. I will say that, Odell and I think John Papucci is going to do a nice job. They have to hit on some of these guys here. I mean, it's going to be really, really hard to maybe hit on guys like Zion Grady and, kids from Alabama and stuff like that. But, I mean, you got to have at least a serviceable recruiting class. I think Hilson's a nice start. And I think man, if you're able to get him and then you're able to kind of pair him up with the Jalen Wiggins, I think can really, really be beneficial to what Florida State kind of brings to the table there on the trenches for the defensive line. But man, I want to talk about another position that kind of Florida State fans hate a little bit about, but that's linebacker. And guess what? Randy Shannon's got a 4-star linebacker committed to this class.
Man,
And I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. The last couple of cycles, minus the Blake Nicholson signing of Derek Ray having a relationship with Blake Nicholson's family, who has he brought on? I mean, other than, like transfers, Tatum Bethune, that was a very nice pickup, but you also had that previous relationship. He's got some talented guys there. I mean, like Riley Petty-John is another guy. Ty Jackson is another guy. Tavion Wallace. I mean, he's got talent that can possibly come in. And Wallace has been crystal ball several times to Florida State at this point. Jackson ascending as we've gone through here. And, I mean, there's a lot of talented prospects. Like, what are your thought processes on Randy Shannon kind of making that resurrection of, resources there at the position?
man, that's man. Hey, bro, it's so funny because he does a great job at
Yeah,
developing guys
I agree.
and just teaching the position. But man, it's rough
Yeah,
sometimes looking at the recruiting part of it.
yeah,
I kind of put him in the same boat as Odell. I was gonna say Odell Beckham, but Odell Hagens, Coach
yeah.
Hagens. You know what I'm saying? Like they do a very great job of developing guys, but when you just talking about just recruiting, it's a little bit there to be
Yeah.
to be fulfilled. So man, but this 2025, he has a chance to change all that because it's some good linebackers, some great linebackers coming out of the class of 2025, and he got, like I said, he got a chance to change it.
Yeah, I will say this too. People said the same thing about Ron Dugans a couple years ago. You know what Ron Dugans did? He went out there and
Changed
he
it.
accomplished a lot of things. And if you want to say that he hasn't, let's go ahead and roll the tape back to Hakeem Williams, how he looks in spring so far. And I mean, Vandrevius Jacobs, another guy that, I mean, he looks good. Camden Fryer, B.J. Gibson, LaWayne McCoy, Elijah Moore. I mean, you can keep naming names. I mean, Keon Coleman he brought on the campus.
I was just gonna say
So
we haven't even touched Louisiana yet. You got Destiny
no,
Hill, Jakai.
that's what
Come
I'm
on, man.
saying. Like you kept a relationship with Destin Hill through the process when everybody thought he wasn't real.
Yep.
I mean, let's be real. Let's give credit where it's due. And we're not ever going to hate on Randy Shannon. You know, Randy Shannon's a great developer. Like we said, we want him to be on the coaching staff. We want him to be successful. And we want Florida State to be successful, specifically on the recruiting trail. Of course, there's going to have to be some fields to shoe, or shoes to fill, excuse me, whenever the linebacker position comes. Because you look at Kalen DeLoach, Tatum Bethune, they're not there anymore. DJ Lundy's going to have to step up in a role that he isn't really familiar with. Yes, he was a co-starter, but can he be that alpha male in the linebacker room? We'll see. I mean, you got a guy like Justin Cryer as well as Omar Graham Jr. and Blake Nicholson. You got guys there, but can they be able to gel together? And I think it's going to be very important to see. Okay, he's a great developer. Let's see what you got. So,
Exactly. And I feel like with Sean Murphy, I feel like
yep.
that's just some good clay that you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Well, he was ranked like a 97, a high
Yeah,
4-star
yeah,
coming out of high school. So he definitely have the pieces. I think that's when you see him do his best work when he have a guy that he can actually develop. Man, it can get dangerous if he put this 2025 class together. It can get real dangerous.
I will ask you this too, 'cause since we're kind of on the topic of Ron Dugans too earlier, is you got two of your top wide receiver targets with Jamie French, who's teammates with Tramel Jones over there in Mandarin, and then you also got Burnell Brown the third, who is also a very very talented receiver that's on the same 7-on-7 team as Tramel too. Both of them are training at Ohio State now, so like it stings a little bit. It's like, you thought you had momentum after French decommitted from Alabama. The first prospect that Norvell saw after he took and kept and extended himself at Florida State was Tramel Jones and Jamie French. And French still might be heading in a different direction. I'm not saying that like the connection with Tramel Jones and like he's not a great recruiter and stuff like that, but like it's kind of disheartening. It's like, okay, we've put ourselves in the driver's seat again, and you're still not going in that direction. And I don't know what it has to take to get it to that point. I don't know if Florida State has to just showcase something. Maybe they have to recruit him harder. Like maybe they have to show him something. But maybe he's just not meant to go to Florida State. I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but like, what are kind of your thought processes on that so far?
Man, it's like it's even with Jeremiah Smith, man. At one point, I was like,
Yeah,
"Dang, are we in the driver's seat?" It kind of felt like
yeah,
we was in the driver's seat for 1 second, but then signing day came, and it was just like we wasn't nowhere near the
hmm,
driver's seat. So
yeah,
it's like I don't know what's going on to like that disconnect. It seemed like
yeah,
everything going good, but at the end, it's like something just disconnect. And Jamie French is one of those guys. He's a dog. He's a dog, and it'd be great to keep him here in Florida, well, specifically at
yep,
Florida State.
yeah.
So man, hopefully we can find a way to you know get those crystal balls swinging back to towards us, because man, we need him. He'll be a great pickup.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like, I definitely think that Ohio State does a tremendous job with their receivers. Won't give Brian Hartline enough credit for what he's done over there because, man, it's been impressive. As you've seen with Jeremiah Smith, same situation.
Same. And then I think just even with that, like you see the guys they like Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, all the awards and all the
Hey.
stuff that he got this
Yep.
past season, man. I think that's another thing that's like it's hard to overcome it. But man, I think once we really start, we win the games, but I think once these guys start seeing it consistently, man, I think that's when we'll start winning over those type of battles.
And I will say this too. I mean, Florida State's trying to recruit with the likes of an Alabama, of an Ohio State. We're not recruiting against a Northwestern, a West Virginia, and a Baylor anymore. We are at the point now as a program that we are no longer at the bottom of the bottom where we were a couple of years ago and trying to rebuild itself back up. No, we're there. we're there. Can we take the
Exactly.
next step to go over that? Is the next step you have to kind of go through, and it's not a fault of Ron Dugan's at that point. It may be communication wise in certain aspects, and we won't blame the coaching staff one way or the other on that because, like I said, I know they want to understand the targets of what they have, and they understand prioritizing certain positions more than others. But it's definitely going to have to be a growing process that Florida State's going to have to go through. But let's just say, for example, you don't hit on French and you don't hit on Brown either. Both of them go to Ohio State or go to another school. I'm really a big fan of Dalen McCutcheon, wide receiver out of Texas. He just released the top schools list recently, and also he's visiting Florida State at the end of June. That is a kid that I am very much in love with. I think that he is a very, very good prospect, top 200 player. I think that the Florida State can really, really factor in what he brings to the table. It's a good thing that most those Texas schools aren't involved because a lot of times when those Texas schools get involved, you're a Texas native. It's kind of hard to beat. But I think since Florida State's kind of out of that realm with that, I think that that can be somebody that Florida State can really, really go after in this one.
Yeah, man. It's a kid that I like from Orlando. I think his name is like Vernell. I think.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
yeah, his name is Vernell. I like him, man. Honestly, bro, this class of wide receivers is pretty loaded too. They out there, man. And I think we might have probably gonna have some surprise names towards the end of the season, like closer
yeah.
to signing day. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, and even the 2024 class, we bring in some dogs, man. Like seriously, BJ
I
Gibson,
agree.
Elijah
Yep.
Moore. So, man, it's just amazing to see what Coach Ron Dugans did, to the room.
Yeah, and I will say this too. I'm a huge fan of Elias Williams, the tight end from Georgia, 5-star. Dude,
Yeah,
he is really, really good. 6'7", 230 pounds. He's visited Florida State quite a bit, and we all know about what happened last year with Landon Thomas. Committed to Florida State when he really wasn't even recruited at all. Ended up decommitting from Florida State because we were kind of in a bad spot as a program. Next thing you know, he commits over to Georgia, stays over there for a little bit, and guess what? Commits back to Florida State and signs with Florida State. Think this could be an option where Florida State can really, really get involved. And man, I would not be opposed to having a 6'7" tight end that can go up, be in the slot, be in the inline blocker, as well as the outside. Whew,
man, 6'7", 235, man. Who that sound
yeah,
like?
man.
Dead giveaway,
Uh,
man.
I'm just telling you, man. And question. So, since you said that, in terms of Johnny Wilson, because I know you're going to be losing Johnny Wilson because he declared for the NFL draft and he's going on to kind of go with his lifelong dreams of being a professional player. As Florida State kind of moves forward there, does Florida State have someone on the roster, not in terms of size, in terms of 6'7", 230, but do you think you can have someone on this roster that you just kind of look towards that can high point the football, can be your efficient, I got to go to him on third down? Like, is there anybody on this roster you think can really accomplish that?
Man, that was a great smooth transition for number one.
Yeah,
But number two, man, honestly, I think Kentron Portier.
yeah,
Yeah, man, I think he got it on him, man. And then that he ran at number one now, so it's just like
yep,
it'll be that feel good story. I think Malik Benson is going to be a guy that I think DJ will be able to rely on.
mhm,
Um, Kentron, I think for just like sure-handed, I think
yeah.
hopefully Kentron and Portier be that guy.
Yeah, dude, I am 100% agree with you about Kentron. I think that that's going to be a guy. And early in his career, I mean, they were going to him left and right. It just wasn't happening right there at the time being. So, I mean, of course, he has to blossom throughout his career, but this is the time and the opportunity for him to get going. This is it. This is all you
This is
got.
it, bro. Yep.
It's the same thing about like Deuce Spann, for example. You've been talking about developing Deuce Spann. Well, guess what? This is last year. He didn't have any other years of eligibility. He has to do it now. Same thing with Malik Benson. You talk about how great he is as a wide receiver. I think he's going to be the number one wide receiver this year. I don't know how you feel about that, but I will say that, man, those wide receivers are special. They're not Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, but they're quite good.
Notice it's a pattern, all speed. And I agree with you, man. Malik Benson, like you just see, like you just tell his work ethic.
Yeah.
The leadership, you could tell, like, man, he not telling our team he gonna be the number one receiver, but um, I feel good that they went and got some guys with speed because
Mhm.
you know last year you could kind of tell like something was missing from the
Yeah.
offense, and I think that's what it was. I think it was like that explosiveness. I think it was missing from the offense, and then you got like Destin Hill as far as speed, Zakai,
Yeah.
Malik Benson. Man, these guys have true, real speed, man. And I'm glad they went and decided they want to get speed because if you look at DJ Uyunglele, if
Yeah.
you go look at his highlights from last season, that Oregon State, man, they had speed on that offense. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that he needs to help him out as far as like some people getting open. I think he need that. So I'm glad they went and did that.
Yeah, man. And I mean, you didn't even mention a guy like Jalen Lucas, who, man,
Oh, yes,
oh
yes.
my gosh, man, he is lightning. And you think that Micah Pittman was a good punt returner and, like, Deuce Spann has some great wheels on kickoff return? I'm just saying, man, like, I know he's a brother of Ja'Kai Douglas, and they go way back, and I understand he's kind of this all-purpose, like, little scat back as you look at. No, they're going to utilize him all over the field, and plus special teams. Mike Norvell just salivates over special teams. It may sound corny, it may sound something like, but think about it. I mean, if your offense is starting on the 17-yard line every single possession, you're probably not going to go anywhere. But if you start on the 30, it's a big, big difference.
Bro, he's like one of those guys where you just like you give the ball and just like let him work. He got
Mhm.
that, he got that just that thing that you really can't teach, man. The speed, and then I think what kind of helped him is he's short.
Yep.
So any short guy that I played with, man, it seemed like they was always good. And I think that's
Yeah.
because people can't really tackle him like that. So I think,
Hmm.
yeah, man, he's just one of those guys, man, with the speed. Hey, I'm ready to see, bro. I'm getting excited talking about it.
So I got a question for you. So you brought up DJ with his quarterback skills, and Florida State brought him in this offseason because they wanted him to be that bridge type of veteran option. Of course, there was a lot of debate this offseason in terms of him bringing in him or Cam Ward. Of course, Cam Ward decided to go to the NFL. Next thing you know, he dropped out of the NFL, went to Miami, and everything else. And the plan was always, just kind of pick between those two and kind of see what happens. And Miami, as they've done this offseason and everything, Vegas has got them at about 9.5 on the win total. Florida State's at a 9.5 win total, and Clemson is at a 9.5 win total. Every one of those teams are kind of close together. And we've talked about it previously, just in kind of just a conversation we had and everything, how we feel DJ is kind of a safer option than Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward has the more potential to, winning a Heisman and, maybe doing that. And I don't think DJ is as flashy. But how do you think and assess of what Florida State brought to the table when they brought DJ in, rather than maybe bringing in a Cam Ward or going for a Brock Glenn and sticking with him the whole time?
Man, I think it's all about the fit. Like, I think if you just go, like, if you look at DJ, man, I think just he fit the offense. He's not, like you say, he's not a flashy guy. Um, and then I also just think, like, his mindset. I don't want to speculate about the Cam Ward thing or whatnot, but I
Yeah.
just think with him wanting to be at FSU, it's not about nothing else. I want to be better. I'm here to make the team better. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all business. So I think he just fit the system better, and I think that's what Coach Norvell looked for. Even outside of quarterback, he looked for guys that want to come in, they want to work, they want to get 1% better each day. So yeah, man, I just think it's all about the fit, bro. And then they played somewhat of a similar offense
Hmm.
at Oregon State.
Yeah.
So I think with DJ matched up with Coach Norvell, Coach Norvell is going to put him in
Mm.
position to make plays. I think a lot of people will skip that part. It's good to have a quarterback that can, what I'm saying, make plays. Make it way out of no way. But Norvell, if you go and look at our offense, man, you'll have guys wide open a lot of times. Like you have guys literally wide open. So I think he's just a good fit. He's a winning quarterback. Coach Norvell is a winning coach. Hey, let's do it.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited, especially to have that game circled against Clemson. Fans are going to be jumping at the opportunity. I know Doak is going to be a little bit more limited this offseason and this season because of the renovations they're going through, but it's going to be super exciting to see that environment when we play Alabama in 2 years. And like we said, Norvell doesn't want anything more than to beat that Alabama team in a couple of years and hopefully kind of resurrect his program into terms of being that championship contender. And Norvell's been preaching it the whole time while he's been in Tallahassee. This championship mindset, culture, understanding what you're going through, 1% better, trying to get as best as you can as a program because you're fighting through adversity every single day. That's life. That's how life is. And can you be able to get yourself off the mat and in terms of playing football again? It could have been easy when you got left out of the 14 playoff to give up. And I mean, you look at that Orange Bowl game, and yeah, you saw a 60-point loss. You saw 20 starters not playing in that game. So, I mean, yeah, you can make excuses all day long, but I mean, how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to go about that? And that's a big thing.
And bro, like, and I'm glad you said that because going back to DJU, he went through adversity at Clemson. What he did, he put his head down, go to Oregon State, go to work, and got better.
Yep.
That's why it seemed like it's a fit, And hopefully I'm not sounding delusional, man. But I think he can surprise a lot of people, bro. I think he can surprise a lot of people. Like I say, with Coach Norvell, I'm ready to see, bro.
Yeah, and I will say this too. The roster doesn't have a Jared Verse on this roster. I love Patrick Payton. I love, Marvin Jones Jr. I think there's a lot of talented pieces in that defensive room. Earl Little Jr., who I think is very, very talented. But Akeem Dent did a very phenomenal job last season in terms of getting that defense together and being a leader. Kalen DeLoach, Tatum Bethune. I mean, Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman. Jordan Travis. You will probably never see a better teammate than Jordan Travis was last season. You got guys like Trey Benson, the home run hitter. I mean, there's a lot of pieces that you're missing.
Yeah, exactly, man. You don't have that proven, you know what I'm saying? Just that he's gonna go first round. I don't
Mhm.
think he had that just yet. I think it's a lot of guys that have the potential. We have a young team next year, to be honest, bro. We have a young team, like outside of the guys that we bring in from the transfer, even the guys that we bring in from the transfer portal, they don't really have a lot of, a playing experience. But I think round about 20, I want to say like round about 2026, some of these
Mhm.
guys gonna be in the conversation for like first, second round. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The great talent. So yeah, man, I'm ready to see, man.
So I got another question for you. So these guys are hungry. They're all ready to prove something. Some of them are even unproven that you don't even really know about. Who is two guys, one on offense and one on defense, who you're really, really excited to see play this season?
Whew. Whew.
It's a big one.
Yeah, that's a
I'll
good one.
let I'll go ahead and go first real quick, and then I'll
Okay.
let you kind of ponder on what you got.
Okay.
So my first pick on offense, Kyle Morlock. I think that this is his opportunity to really, really shine. I know last offseason, everybody was talking about Jaheim Bell for good reason. Very talented option. Good. You look at Kyle Morlock from Shorter University, Division II school. Not really much to talk about. But during that Pitt game, when we didn't really have many options on the offensive side of the ball, him and Ja'Kai Douglas basically carried that offense. I
Yeah,
mean,
for
I'm just going
sure.
to be flat out honest. I mean,
Yeah.
no Wilson, no Coleman. Okay, cool. You know, let's ride. And I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow, especially how good Norvell wants to choose tight ends in his offense. Very, very big there. I think on the defensive side of the ball, Tomiwa Ajayi from West Virginia, uh, versatile defensive end slash defensive tackle. Super excited to see him play. I think that he can be able to play both ways, inside and out. I think he can be utilized all over the field. Not necessarily saying that Marvin Jones Jr. cannot put up big numbers this year, but I think it may take a little bit for him to get going. So I think in the meantime, you got a more of an experienced, younger option in a redshirt sophomore at this point in Durajaye that can actually be able to come in, show that versatility, can be able to kind of go all over the defensive line. I think you've already got two really, really good defensive tackles in Daryl Jackson as well as Josh Farmer. I think those are going to be your two. You got some other guys as well at the defensive tackle position that's good, but man, Durajaye can be really, really good. I already talked about Earl Little. I think Earl Little kind of speaks for himself. I think that he can play anywhere on this defense, but I'm definitely going to have to go with Durajaye in terms of just maybe you're not seeing him right now, but fans will start focusing on him a little bit later.
Hey, I like it, bro, because man, it's a lot of guys you can really say,
Hmm.
man.
Yeah,
I think I'm
yeah,
on defense. I think I'm gonna go ahead and say Earl Little. I think I'm gonna go ahead
yeah.
and say Earl Little because Earl Little is a guy that I really want. I wanted him out of high school. You know
Hmm.
what I'm saying? I want him to come to FSU out of high school. I think he just have that it, man. I don't know. You could take, whatever you want to do, but I think he just
Yeah.
have that swagger, that physicality. He kind of have a chip on the shoulder when he played. And then
Hmm.
even like seeing some of the Alabama guys talk about him, I think they said one of the main things that he had going on was like injury at Alabama. But they
Hmm.
said like when he was out there on the field, he was making plays like in practice and all that type of stuff. So that's one guy that I want to see on defense. On offense, I'm gonna be a little different, and I'm gonna say Richie Leonard. I'm gonna say
Okay.
Richie Leonard. I want to see
Okay.
what
Yeah.
Richie Leonard brings to the table because I feel like the offensive line last year,
Hmm.
um, it didn't really do as good as I thought. They didn't really do as good as I thought, but I think Richie Leonard is a guy that's kind of slept on. I think his transfer report grade is like an 87,
Hmm.
but I think his grade could be a little bit better because I think it's that because he was playing at Florida. And this is just me thinking. I think it was that because he played at Florida and Florida wasn't necessarily like a good, you know. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna talk about him, but I think he can bring the athleticism to the offensive line. Just that dog mentality, you know what I'm saying? Where we can run the ball and get 2 yards on 3rd and 2.
Yeah.
1 yard, 4th and 1. So those are my two players.
Man, that's going to be pretty good, man. If we can be able to get both of those guys to come in and really shine, Florida State, the sky's the limit for them this season. So I kind of want to end on this last thought and this last question that we got here. What do you think is going to be the ceiling and the floor of this season, just in terms of just how we're going to play? Because let's face it, man, 12-0 was a huge season for Florida State and an ACC championship. That's massive, and that's you know going from 3-6 to 5-7 to 10-3, and now to 13-0 or 13-1, whatever you want to classify it as. That's huge, man. Like, that's a big step in the right direction. And Florida State fans are saying, okay, there's so much talent away from this roster. How can they do now? What are your thoughts on like how Florida State can kind of respond to what they did last season and translate it to what they're going to do this season?
Oh man, man, honestly, like I think the offense is going to be better,
Hmm.
and I know that's probably a lot of people
Yeah.
probably gonna be like, huh? But I think that the offense can be like more consistent. Like I think last year we had like sometimes where we had like lapses. You know what I'm saying? Like we'll
Hmm.
have a big play, but then like second quarter we'll kind of take a step back. But I think with this offense, I think we'll have a better chance to drive the ball down, more consistent, and I think that'll lead to maybe like the floor, maybe like 8 wins, and then the ceiling like 11 wins. I told you this, so I think like
Yeah.
around about 8, 11 wins, somewhere in between there. Um, I think it'll be a hard task to go undefeated this year. The
Yeah.
schedule is if you ask me, I think it's like a tad bit harder than what we had last season.
Yeah.
If you ask me. So I think, but if we can go undefeated, I think it's a shot. But I just don't think it's like a big chance that we can go undefeated. But I say around about between 8 and 11 wins.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm super excited to kind of see how everything pans out because, I mean, Florida State sits in a pretty good spot. I mean,
Yeah,
even though they've got guys that are coming off the roster, as you said before, I think this offense is going to be more consistent because, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, there was like games where it would be like Trey Benson would run for 1 or 2 yard carry here and there. and then he would just spring off a 75-yard touchdown run out of nowhere. And I mean,
Yep.
then you might go back to 2 or 3, yards here and there, and then next thing you know, you bust out another run. I mean, it was like you couldn't really ever get consistent. And I know Jordan loved to stay in the pocket. He didn't really utilize his legs as much as you thought he would. That Florida game in 22, you talked about how much he utilized his legs. After everybody was talking about he couldn't do it, and man, he went out there and showcased everything, put it all out there for him, whatever it took to win, at that
Yep.
point. And I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially for Florida State fans, because DJ is not going to be the same runner. I mean,
Right.
he's 250 pounds. I mean, he's a great, he can get you a couple yards in goal line situations or maybe third down 2. You might be able to kind of get him running, but he's not got the same it factor, I guess you could say, as running the football as Jordan does.
I hope our fan base don't like, and I know this is probably like an obvious thing to say, but
Yeah.
man, believe it or not, I think it's gonna be some people that go into next season expecting DJ DJU to be Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I feel like some people I feel like the people that actually look into it, they gonna know like, okay, DJU is not Jordan Travis.
Hmm.
But man, hopefully everybody can kind of see, and then kind of I hope we are able to adjust to what we see next year, because it's not the same team, man. You lost a lot from last team. You don't have
Yep.
Keon Coleman no more. You don't have Johnny Wilson. You don't have Trey Benson. So hopefully people can, see it and adjust to it. And I think we're gonna get better from next year. Like, I think it's gonna be better the year after. So hopefully we can adjust to it.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with kind of your synopsis of like how the season is going to go in terms of like floor and ceiling. I'm never going to put a ceiling on this team that they never can accomplish, because I mean, I think it's possible they can have an undefeated season. I think it's a little bit lower of a percentage than it was last season, but I mean, Florida State starts this season 5-0. I mean,
Yeah.
you're looking at Georgia Tech, Boston College, Cal, Memphis, and SMU, which I think the SMU is going to be kind of sneaky in terms of going over there to play them. And then you play Clemson. I mean, you can go 5-0, find a way to beat Clemson somehow, 6-0, and then you got that tough stretch when you're playing Miami, North Carolina, and Notre Dame. So I
Mhm.
mean, if you find a way to maybe win 2 out of the 3 there, I mean, it's doable. I mean, I know a lot of fans are kind of expecting, and the Vegas win total has you at 9.5, and everybody's kind of counting you out in terms of, you know, you don't know what you've improved and what you got on the roster, but man, this team is pretty good still.
Hey, and with a coach like Coach Norvell, it's definitely doable, man. It seemed like every time you seem like every time you doubt him, he just get better and better. The team just get better and better every time
Yep.
you, not, I shouldn't say doubt him, but it's like every time you think like, okay, this gonna be something that we got to get over, man, he just find a way to get over it. So like I say, it's definitely possible. It's like, I don't even want to say 11 wins, because it's like you never know with this team, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, man, it's just I don't know, bro. It's just you losing a lot, man. So
Yeah.
man, we'll see, man.
Yeah. Well, like we said, we never want to count them out, but we're realistic. We try to be as realistic as possible. We don't try to be super negative, but if it comes out negative, it is what it is. We're just trying to be very insightful for what we say in terms of these things. But man, I'm super excited to see how Florida State kind of responds to adversity, how they've talked about how moving conferences and getting through that whole process and just going through some of the things they're going through right now as a program. Man, I just think that Coach Norvell is going to put us in the right direction, and I hope that this is going to be a magical season for us. And finally, we're able to get to that quote unquote invitational and move forward there and see how the committee can find a way to put us in there finally. Um, Maybe the lawsuit won't be too bad, but we'll see. But man, is there any parting thoughts you got before we head on out today?
Yeah, man. Hey, let's no family. Let's keep applying pressure to the college football playoff committee. Let's
Yeah.
and let's make them hear about it every time they get on Twitter. Let's apply pressure. Kurt Herbstreit, let's keep applying pressure. So that's all I got to say, man.
Oh yeah, man. Well, Jay, it was a pleasure, man, as always, having you on discussing some of this stuff. We promise the next time I'll make sure to consistently try to do some of these videos every once in a while. I know the off season's kind of slow right now. We're trying to get through recruiting. We're trying to get into spring camp. we're trying to get into the summer and back into the fall, into the swing of things once again. But man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking some Florida State football with me. And as always, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Just try to share it with all your friends, all your neighbors, all your churchgoers, whoever it is, man. Share it with your grandma. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have a good time vibing with us, making sure you tune in with us every time you listen to any kind of Florida State news or anything like that. Be sure to go check out his channel as well as we kind of go through that process together. But I really appreciate it as always, and go Noles.
Go Noles.